Before I review the Cloud Surfer Trail, we have to talk about one of the best things that On Running has done. The introduction of the Cloud Surfer 7. You see, this brought us this Cloud Tech phase, which birthed the Eclipse, using the same technology in the midsoles. The question now is, what do we do if we want to go out on the trails? The Cloud Surfer Trail. It's a little muddy because man's been running out in the woods, being Indiana Jones and all of that. But in this video, I'm going to review it. But I will also try and give you reasons why I think you should also go out in the trails. Let's go. 3 things you always need to know. Let's start here. The price, £150. That's a fair price for a trail running shoe. And I'm telling you, the Cloud Tech Phase makes that quite worth it. The next thing is the weight. I wear a 9.5 UK and this fit perfectly true to size, and it weighed in at 300 grams or 10.6 ounces. And in terms of the stack height, you've got a 7mm drop, 32.5 at the back and 25.5 at the front. Now, for those of you that watch the channel, you know I'm no trail running expert. Once in a while, I get this unsustainable inspiration to try out something new. But I've actually managed to stick to it and been getting out in the woods here and there. But I've made a plan that 1 of my long runs in a month will be out in the trails, and 2 of my easy runs that I would do in the week will be done in the trails as well, giving me an opportunity to get out there. But before I get into the shoe, first reason of why I think you should check out the trails.
Number 1, the outdoors. Mental health is severely enhanced if you just get outside. Look at this. You're out in the open. It's not in the terrain of busy roads or worrying about your safety. You're just appreciating nature. It clears your head, you know? And for me, it doesn't get better than that. Let's go.
Okay, let's start breaking the shoe down. A normal conversation from the top, working our way down, starting with the heel. Love that. Heel tab. That is key for getting that shoe on as well as taking it off. And I really like that. One thing I also like is this accentuated heel here at the back. When you look at the collar, that is really good. It's very good cushion. It's very good comfort at the back of your Achilles. And I can't fault that. It is quite uniform with the padding all around that. In terms of the heel, now this becomes quite crucial, especially in a trail running shoe. There's a lot of structure. The reason why it's more important in a trail running shoe, you're going to be running into all sorts, stones, roots, uneven surfaces, grass. You need as much of a lockdown as you can get. And this provides that.
Okay, reason number 2, why the trails are good for you, your presence. You see, when you're running on the road, you just run. You don't have to think of foot placement, you just run. Whereas on the trails, you have to be present. You have to be careful where you're placing your feet. You have to watch the terrain, watch your surroundings. And that's not a bad thing. It's you're actually there and you're present on the run. Don't get me wrong, I still like to have my music, whether it's a podcast, an audiobook, or music. But being out on the trails, you just have to take the scenery in. But more importantly, you have to watch what you're doing. And I like that, because you don't just zombie out. I like that.
3 things to talk about in terms of the tongue. It's gusseted, gusseted, gusseted. Gusseted. Well done for that. Well done. Fully gusseted tongue. We always love that. Secondly, it's the padding itself. This feels absolutely plush to the touch. It's a very squishy, nice, comforting feel. It does contribute to the weight, like I said, but to me, I don't really care about that. When I'm out in the trails, I'm not out there looking at pace. I'm not out there trying to be Kipchoge. I'm out there just trying to enjoy myself on this trail run, and all I want is comfort and cushioning just to take me through and see me through this trail run. This tongue is uniform to that feeling. The third thing to talk about in terms of the tongue, you've got 2 places to tuck the laces. It has the strip that runs in the middle of the tongue that actually it holds the tongue in place. When you actually do the laces and put the laces through that tongue's not going to slip down. Secondly, there's this elastic part in the middle of the tongue there that when you've tied the laces, you can then tuck them in. It's a nice touch.
Number 3, now this is not a technical term, but trail running is badass. There is something about expanding out from the norm. Everyone runs on the road. Everyone does road running. Everyone goes on a treadmill. But you take a certain level of trying it out to be out in the trails. And I love that. As I said, it's badass.
It brings me to the laces. They've maintained the sort of style and structure of the Cloud Surfer 7 in terms of the lacing system. It's a mixture. You've got these, that X-shaped eyelets, as well as your normal standard Halls kind of eyelets, and it's back to this fabric style up here. Normally, I don't like anything like that because I think it introduces weakness to a shoe. I haven't had anything wrong with the Cloud Surfer 7, but I always think a standard normal eyelet system will always work best. But that's what you're going to see here with very kind of standard laces. Not really anything special to call out here. Standard laces, nothing to complain about. It works very well.
Number 4, variation. Regardless of what you're training for or just running, running can get boring. I'll admit it. But whether you're training for a marathon, an ultra, 5K, even couch to 5K, if you don't change things up, eventually things get boring. And so you find yourself slowing down, or even worse, completely quitting. Coming out in the trails, it challenges you to see new environments, or even traveling to new cities, towns, to go look at the trails there. Let's go.
The upper. Now, let me point this out. There is a waterproof version of this, which I think retails at 170 pounds, whereas this is 150. If you can stretch that 20 pounds, I would highly recommend you do so. Because this upper is not one to be challenged, especially on the day I was running. I came back and my socks were drenched. It was a rainy day, it was muddy, the puddles, and I was intentionally running through everything, as you can see in some of this footage. Just because I wanted to just have fun, just be a kid and enjoy being out in the trails. If you want something that's going to keep you dry in such conditions, I would highly recommend you go through that. In terms of the upper though, it is a really nice mesh. I really like this. Honestly, I think in terms of the on-running Cloud Surfer 7 feel, they've maintained that. And I can't really fault that. It's highly breathable, but as I say, breathability stops being an issue in the conditions that I'm in, and most trail running conditions, I would highly suggest you get the waterproof version. But I love the look that you see here. It's very aesthetic. They've thought about it. It's not a very minimalistic upper. I like the design, but it's, as I say, it's highly breathable. It does exactly what it needs to do in giving you a plush feel in line with that Cloud Surfer setting that we saw on the 7. Before I move on from the upper, you're going to see added detail at the front. This toe cap, it's a bit more reinforced. It's a rubbery kind of feel, simply because you need that protection when you're out in the trails. As I mentioned, it's so unpredictable what you're going to run into. Roots, stones, grass, whatever it is, this provides that protection. So a nice touch on, well done, midsole. This is easily the best part of this shoe. This is helium foam that we know, but reconfigured into this Cloud Phase. And we saw that in the Cloud Surfer 7 the first time. They carried it over to the Eclipse, and I have to tell you, it's an amazing midsole. Normally in on-running shoes, they've got a speed board running through it. They did away with that in the Cloud Surfer 7, and it doesn't have a speed board in this one. And I'm only saying hallelujah for that, because it is a plush feeling trail shoe. Normally, trail running shoes are very technical. They're there to kind of be there and do the job. And of the ones that I have tried, not many, there are some, not many have provided me a plush feel. That's exactly what you're going to get in this one. So a very nice touch on Cloud Phase on a trail running shoe. That's what we've been waiting for. All right, the outsole. Now, a word of warning here. Not just because it says it's a trail running shoe means you can be Indiana Jones running through the Temple of Doom, Mount Kilimanjaro, the Alps. No. Take it to UTMB. No. You see, the outsoles of trail running shoes are configured differently, and they are gauged depending on what kind of terrain you're going to be running on. This shoe is for very light to medium kind of level trails. You don't want to take this shoe on a very technical trail. It won't serve you very well, simply because when you look at the outsoles of trail running shoes, they've got teeth, call them lugs. Now, these lugs aren't that aggressive. You will find lugs that are structured differently, protrude even more, and therefore that can deal with that kind of technical terrain I talked about. This you can actually run on in the roads, because you will see from the footage, I actually went on pavements, light gravel, to some challenging terrain, but this is not for your technical terrains, that kind of thing. You're probably gonna look at a different shoe for that. So this does exactly what it needs. This Mission grip, it's very, very good, very tacky and grippy. And I also have to say, looking at it in terms of coverage, it will do exactly what you need. It's got very thorough coverage, and also people complain about on running shoes picking up all sorts of stones in the middle. That has been brought out to avoid all of that. The one thing that I should warn you about, let's go to this one. Not necessarily with the outsole, but just the midsole generally. These holes, especially when you're out in the trails, are gonna pick up all sorts of squish, mud, and that kind of stuff in these holes. It's unavoidable, especially if you're being a donut like I was, intentionally running in some of these spaces. Just make sure that when you get home, before this stuff dries up, give it a slight blast with a hose pipe, a stick, I don't know, get that mud, don't give it a chance to settle and dry. Head to the clouds, feet on the ground.